Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having a great day so far, and welcome to today's video where I am going to be ranking my all-time top 10 favorite concealers. All of these concealers are especially amazing for those of us who aren't quite 20 still. Our under eye areas have a little bit of texture, some lines to deal with. Concealers have a little bit of a tougher job, some would say. These are the 10 concealers I've tried that can tackle those under eye circles without leaving us looking like a creasy, separating mess. So without further ado, let's get started. So a little bit of background for you before we kick into this ranking. I am 40 years old. I just turned 40 in January. I have a pretty normal skin type with the usual early signs of aging. I have some fine lines under my eyes and I have a little bit of darkness, not the most extreme, but I do prefer a full coverage concealer to really cancel out that darkness, that doesn't leave me feeling heavy, that does not crease, that does not separate, that doesn't look dry and heavy or feel dry and heavy under my eyes. That is what I'm kind of looking for in a concealer. And all of the concealers that I'm going to mention today have achieved what I'm looking for to some degree. These are the top 10 best concealers I've ever tried for my under eye area. So I think all 10 of these concealers are great concealers and might be someone else's absolute number one, depending on little preferences, little nuances, which I'm going to let you know as we go through. So starting off in 10th place, we have the Chanel Sublimage Les Yeux concealer. This is the pot concealer, cream concealer, and there's one reason why this is in 10th place. It would be a lot higher if not for this packaging. You see the mess that we've gotten into already, and this is with me not using it super frequently because I just hate the mess of it all. I store this upright in my drawer. I'm very careful, but it's already still so messy. It's also kind of tricky to just use a tiny amount to really control the application because it's just this wide open pot versus like a doe foot that would be easier, you know, to dispense a small amount and build up where you need it. So those are the reasons why this is ranked lower down. It's a bit more finicky, it's a bit more annoying and messy to use. Otherwise, this is an excellent concealer. It has a beautiful sort of luminous finish to it, plenty of coverage. I would say this is a medium to full concealer. Feels lovely under the eyes, very fresh and hydrating and light. Wears nicely. I do get a small amount of creasing throughout the day with this one. Set it very, very heavily and I can tap those out and I don't have an issue, and it wears very, very well, but the packaging is just unforgivable for me, so it does bump it down. But the product itself is very, very nice, and if you can get over that a little bit better than me, it is a beautiful concealer and lovely for heavier dark circles because it has a really good coverage and it's also forgiving on lines. In 9th place, we have the Hourglass concealer, a bit of an oldie now. It's been around a good few years, but a goodie. This is a really lovely soft focus concealer, more of a natural soft matte finish, a little bit more coverage in comparison to the Chanel. It's kind of pretty much a solid full coverage off of the bat. Really nice natural finish, very, very smooth and forgiving. I get no creasing with this concealer. I do struggle with Hourglass's shade range sometimes, and this is not a particular good one as far as like the undertones and getting some really nice natural shades out of it. So that's why it's maybe not quite so high as some others, but it's a really solid, nice, full coverage concealer that does not crease, that does not feel super heavy. It's not as weightless again as some of these that come above it, but it is a very nice solid concealer, very reliable, photographs flawlessly as well. It gives a very flawless airbrushed finish to it because it doesn't have a lot of luminosity, so it's very flattering on texture and lines as well. Really, really nice concealer. 9th place. One that is a slightly different kettle of fish for me in 8th place is the Gucci concealer. This is such a beautiful concealer, but it is a little lighter on the coverage. So I would say this is a medium coverage. It is beautiful under the eyes. I love everything about it. Very light, really nice undertones as far as the shades. Beautiful packaging with these floral prints. Very, very nice component. Really nice soft doe foot that dispenses the right amount of product. But for my personal preferences and just my under eye situation personally, it just leaves too much discoloration or darkness poking through for it to be any higher. If you don't have a lot of darkness or discoloration under your eyes, this is such a great concealer, especially for mature skin. It is so flattering and does such a good job over fine lines. It's probably one of the top couple as far as actually how it sits in lines, how it goes on, the finish, how beautiful and airbrushed it looks under the skin, how awake and fresh as it has that little bit of a luminous finish. It's so pretty, so flattering. I just wish it had a little bit more coverage, and then it would probably be like my number 1 or 2. But because it is slightly lacking that full coverage that I personally prefer, it's a little bit lower down. But for a more natural makeup, a more medium coverage concealer, this is my number 1 of this top 10. I just need a little bit more help to hide all of my sins, you know. So in 7th place, a big surprise for me was the Natasha Denona concealer. I say it's surprising because her original concealer was an utter hate and a fail for me. This new concealer is much, much better than the previous offering from the brand. I find this doe foot so gentle and soft, and it just dispenses the perfect amount of coverage and color where you need it without having to go back and build up. It's a really nice precise tip to the doe foot as well, so that really helps you get right into the corner, carving out those eyes. It's a lovely full coverage, very creamy, kind of thicker consistency of a concealer, really nice sort of natural finish to it as well. The one thing that this could do slightly better is it sometimes creases a little on me. I have to really make sure I'm setting it really well with powder, maybe tapping out any little bits of creasing that come throughout the day. Not major creasing, but just a tiny little bit that I have to be, you know, aware that I'm really going in with that powder to stop creasing happening throughout the day. But otherwise, a very nice concealer. It looks beautiful on, beautiful undertones as well to the colors, and just a really nice solid concealer. In 6th place, we have the Tom Ford Soft Matte Stick Concealer. This is different to all of the others because, as I said, it's a solid stick cream concealer. I didn't love this one initially because it just takes a little bit of getting used to. If you're used to a doe foot and a liquid concealer, and then this is a solid. So I think I was just initially applying too much and I was getting a little bit of creasing that I didn't love, and I just took a little bit of time to get used to it. I took this on holiday with me because it was just an easy travel solution. I didn't want to take powder with me on holiday just in case it's shattered or broke and made a huge big mess of my makeup bag. So I took this one on a bit of a whim, knowing that I could, you know, put it in my handbag and touch up. Very easy with it being a stick, and I fell in love with it. I never used powder to set this while I was on my holidays. We were in a warm, humid climate, and I would just use this every night. I actually never needed to touch up. It works so nicely. It doesn't need to be set, which I really enjoyed and really found helpful while I was traveling. So I always take this one with me whenever I'm traveling. It's small, it's perfect for touch-ups. Pop it in your handbag or to travel with, and you don't need to take powder. You can literally just use the concealer and go. So if you don't like powder under your eyes, or you don't want to have to bring it with you, this is such a good one. If you want to do touch-ups, it's the most travel friendly one of all of these concealers that I'm going to talk to you about today. It's very easy to build. I do find if you use a lot, you will get creasing. But if you use a smaller amount, blend it out, use a finger to tap it out, you won't get creasing even when you haven't set it. Really nice natural matte finish with a really solid full coverage, really easy to use, don't even need a brush or a sponge. Really nice concealer, and for me, my absolute favorite to take whenever I travel. And now we enter the top 5, and all of these are absolute loves. At one time or another, every one of these, apart from one because it's a new entry, has been a holy grail. Okay, that's how great all of these concealers are. Kicking us off in 5th place, it's the Pat McGrath Concealer. This is, or has been, a holy grail for years. I've repurchased it many, many times. It's such a great concealer. Full coverage, really nice and flattering on lines, does not crease at all, wears very, very well, natural matte finish, everything I look for. Nice small component, really good price point for Pat McGrath makeup, amazing shade range, all of the ticks. The only reason this has been like bumped down a couple of places is because these concealers coming above it are somehow even better. I didn't think it was possible. When I first tried this, I thought this is it, my holy grail for life. But the one thing I found about it is, although it is what I would consider full coverage, I can still just about see some darkness peeking through. Still just about there, just a hint. It's just not completely immaculately covered. Like there's full coverage and then there's full coverage, you know, and this is full coverage, not full coverage. Am I making sense? Probably not. I rarely do. But if you want a full coverage concealer with a natural matte finish and you have mature under eyes, this is one of the best that I could possibly recommend to you. Really nice, has been a staple for me and I still use it very frequently. I find the doe foot a tiny bit smaller than I would love it to be, but that does help with you using it in precise areas. But what come after it is just, it's very hard to beat, but we've managed to do it. In 4th place, we have the Dior concealer. Again, a bit like the Gucci, this is a concealer that is a little different to the rest of my top 10. It's not quite my usual cup of tea for a couple of reasons. One, I do find this more of a like medium to full coverage. And 2, this is the most luminous of all of these concealers. I typically don't like a radiant under eye, and this is more luminous. I would say it's a subtle luminosity, especially once you've set it with powder, but you can definitely tell a difference between something like the Dior and the Pat McGrath that is a more traditional matte finish. There's definitely a bit more luminosity to that under eye area, and it definitely feels more hydrated than any of these other concealers. It is a very light, hydrating, almost cooling effect under the eyes that I really enjoy, especially in summer. And in summer, I don't really need as much coverage as well. So I feel like this is kind of my summer go-to. It feels lighter, feels a bit more hydrating, a bit kinder to that under eye area that might be feeling a bit drier and a bit warmer in the summer months, hopefully. We pray. I usually do not like glowy under eyes or glowy under eye concealers because I find them unflattering on texture. I feel like it really sort of shines a torch on the texture and the fine lines that you might have under your eyes, and I'm not a big fan of that. But this one gives you enough luminosity that it feels really nice and comfortable and hydrated, but not so much that it is emphasizing texture and fine lines. It's such a nice concealer. It's not my typical preference, but I still love it, even though it is more luminous than I typically favor, which just goes to show what a great concealer it is. If you have super dry under eyes or very mature under eye skin, this would probably be my #1 recommendation to you if you want the most hydrating, a bit more luminosity under your eyes to help with that drier area. That would be the most hydrating and the most luminous out of this whole bunch, the whole gang. In 3rd place, another former holy grail. It is the Huda Beauty. What? Huda Beauty? God. It is the Huda Beauty Faux Filter Concealer. This was a holy grail for years. I absolutely love this concealer. It's so nice. I still use it a lot. This top 5 is pretty much my like rotation of concealers. I just go back and forth between them because I love them all so much. These two are very similar, very hard to kind of pick a winner between these two. The Huda, I think, just edges it slightly because it has a larger doe foot that I just prefer. Larger, flatter doe foot gets the product down, lays it down really nice and evenly and quickly, which is a big priority for me. The quicker, the better. No messing around in this house. We don't have time. So this does kind of cut out a bit of the faffing about with a much smaller wand like the Pat McGrath. So this lays the product down quickly, easily, and it blends out like a dream. This is, until very recently, the most full coverage concealer that I had ever found. So that's why it was my holy grail and why I preferred it so much, because it has a really good, I'd say it was like covering 95% of my under eye darkness. Really nice soft matte finish, great coverage, really nice creamy but very easy to blend with no effort. Formula, very, very nice, very creamy, but very thin as well at the same time. So you can blend it out very, very easily. Really nice doe foot, like I said, really nice compact component, great price point, great shades, great undertones as always from Huda. I mean, you can see I've got like 4 or 5 shades of this. This one's nearly run out. I have and still do use this a lot and really enjoy it. And now in second place, a new entry that is so close to toppling my holy grail, but it is second place for the new Guerlain Terracotta Concealer. Yes, that is the correct name, just checking. This is such a nice concealer. This is the concealer that I've got on today. This is quite new to me. I've only had this for a couple of weeks now, but I've been using it every day since it arrived and really testing it out and really checking my thoughts and how I feel about it. One, I absolutely love the packaging. This luxurious glass chic bottle with the beautiful detail on the cap. It's lovely. I really like that. I've got a really nice shade for me. It's very comfortable under the eyes. It feels nice and light. It's got great coverage, as you can probably see. It's got a really nice full coverage, a natural matte finish. It wears incredibly well throughout the day. I've worn this in some really, really long days, and it always looks flawless at the end of 9-10 hours when I come to take my makeup off and I look in the mirror. Wow, every day I'm surprised at how amazing it still looks when I go to take my makeup off. Such a great concealer. There's literally like the smallest little smidge between this and my number one. I think really the couple of things that edge it out into second place for me is, one, it's like, again, a bit like the Huda, it's kind of covering 95-96% of what I want it to cover. It's just not quite as full coverage as my number one. And the fragrance. The fragrance is intense. It's like a perfume. And while it does dissipate fairly quickly, while you're applying it, you do notice it. And I know for a lot of people that will be a deal breaker. For me, it's not, but I would rather it wasn't there, you know? In an ideal world. But it is super flattering on under eye texture and lines. Very, very flawless, very, very smooth. Wears unbelievably well. Great coverage, really lovely. I keep saying it, but it's got the silkiest texture. Every time I talk about this concealer, I have to talk about the texture because it just stands out to me when I apply it. It's just so smooth to go on. It's really, really amazing, lovely texture to apply. I don't know what is different about it, but it feels like almost serum-y, but in a great way. Very, very silky, smooth texture, incredibly easy to blend into the skin. And like I said, it wears unbelievably well. If you just have a hair less to cover than me and mature under eyes and you like a matte finish, this is an amazing concealer. So most of you will know what is going to be in first place. It is the Haus Labs concealer. What edges it for me about this concealer to make it my holy grail? It's the coverage. It just covers more than any other concealer I've ever tried. Out of all of these other concealers, this just has that bit more coverage. So it just gives me a completely flawless under eye, which is what I'm looking for, because there is just not a peak, not a hint of any discoloration showing through once I've gone in with a small amount of this. A little goes a really long way. They have great undertones and shade range at Haus Labs. They've done an excellent job with that. This one has everything going for it. The shades, the price point, the component. It has a really nice texture to it that blends out very, very easily. It covers everything you could possibly want or need it to and more. It's very smooth and flattering on lines and texture. It wears very, very well. It photographs beautifully. It doesn't feel heavy. It doesn't have a crazy amount of fragrance in it. It's a nice, light, comfortable formula. It just ticks every single one of my boxes, and it just does it slightly better than all of these others. It's had a challenge come in already this year from that Guerlain, but the coverage of this one just edges it out for me. It has more coverage than any of these other 9 without sacrificing the wear time, without sacrificing the comfortability, without sacrificing how it looks and how it fares on texture and under eyes, without sacrificing how flattering it is on lines and texture, without creasing, without budging, without separating, without fading throughout the day. It is unbelievably good. The best concealer I've ever tried, and my holy grail in #1 spot. And so there you have it. Those are my top 10 concealers that I have ever tried, ranked for you from least to most love. I do have reviews of all of these concealers up on my channel if you want to see every single one of these in action, close-ups, all the tea, wear test, all of the above. I will create a playlist for concealers, which I will link in the description box down below if you want to have a look at any of the specific concealers mentioned in this video. You want to see them in action and see a little bit more detail about each individual one. I will link a playlist with all of the reviews for you in the description box. Please let me know your #1 concealer in the comments section. I would love to know if there's any that I'm missing out on that I haven't tried that you think could stand a chance of making it into this top 10 or even be a new holy grail. I don't think it can be done, but you never know. But thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, and I would love to see you in the next one. Otherwise, take care for now. Bye.